So good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's peer networking series, where the Cannabis Control Board staff is going to be discussing product registration and giving an overview of the process of product registration. Before we start tonight, I wanted to just start out by talking a little bit about the board and its obligations to ensure consumer safety in the cannabis marketplace. So I just wanted to start by saying that we've got over a dozen distinct statutory requirements that we are obligated to uphold for every single product, cannabis flower and cannabis product that reaches the retail market. We have to ensure that each product meets a variety of packaging requirements, labeling requirements, meets a whole host of testing parameters, doesn't appeal to children, meets potency limits, doesn't appeal to anybody who's under the age of 21, adheres to serving size limits, adheres to packaging size limits, contains the appropriate health warnings and health symbols, and meets a number of other public health requirements. So in upholding these obligations, we're reviewing labels, we're reviewing ingredient lists, health warnings, lab results, packaging. The mechanism that we have built for upholding these statutory mandates for every single product before it's eligible for sale in Vermont is product registration. We've got statutory authority for product registration in 7 VSA 910, which requires us to assess an annual product licensing fee for the registration process. I understand that people out there, licensees, are upset about the length of time it is taking the CCB staff to review our product registration applications. This is the same backlog issue that we faced when we first opened up the licensing application portal. We were building our application portal while we were accepting licensing applications. The same thing is happening with product registration. We built an interim product registration system to ensure that we had a mechanism to review product registration applications. And while we accepted applications through that interim system and were reviewing those applications, we were also building our permanent Salesforce-based product registration system that is going to and does now integrate with our licensing portal and our inventory tracking system. Many of you know this already, but the statutory timeline that was laid out for the Cannabis Control Board in our enabling legislation for year one had what many people consider to be impossible deadlines, which is why we were and we are building the plane while we fly it. We have a limited amount of staff, and because we're an agency of the state, we need to have legislative authority to hire additional staff. We have shifted internal staff resources to address the product registration backlog, but we are a regulatory agency with a number of other requirements besides product registration. We're still reviewing licensing applications, conducting site visits, addressing compliance issues, managing appeals. All of these other mandates are ongoing, and we have to retain staff ability to address other matters and not just product registration. So what I just would like to conclude here by saying that we are going to get through this backlog the same way that we got through our licensing application backlog over the summer. So with all of that said, tonight, Lauren is going to be providing a demonstration of how product registration works. Lauren Higby, she is the Deputy Director of Licensing here at the Cannabis Control Board. Lauren's going to walk through the front end of the portal, the part that licensees see as they go to register products, and also the back end of the portal that CCB staff sees as we review your applications. The goal tonight is to assist cannabis licensees that are working on their product registrations. We are going to go through our requirements. And at the end, we will be taking questions from people who have questions about product registration. And I would like to emphasize that this is really designed to assist licensees. So it's our hope, just like every FAQ session we hold and all of our sessions that are open to the public, that people will be respectful of staff and our time, and reserve your questions to those that are relevant to product registration. So thank you very much for coming, and I'm going to turn it over to Lauren.
And there are a couple of things before we jump into the review. I just wanted to note, since the new licensing portal opened, we have 689 individual product registrations, which about equals 86 submissions per week. And if we're thinking of all the requirements we're reviewing, that's over 3,200 data points per week that I think is really important for you all to grasp the scope from our side, and I love to understand the scope from your side as well. I say that to really I want to be collaborative as we adjust our realistic expectations of a time frame that we could get through that amount of submissions and data to review that, as Bryn said, we are statutorily obligated to do so. So at this point, we're reviewing products submissions from about 12 business days ago, which I think is I offer that so you all can kind of see where you are in line. I know I get that question a lot of when's my product up for review, or when can I be registered? So that's to give you one point of reference. And the other point that I think is important to communicate is about the responsibility of our retailers. As we're looking at product registration submissions, we really want to understand what the product looks like, what it tests like, and how it hits the market, and how that consumer is going to see it in your store. And so I really want to empower the retailers to be our gatekeepers of product registration. And so since you are selling directly to consumers, it is your obligation to ensure that the product is registered. If you're not the ones registering it yourself as retailers, then at some other point through the chain from cultivator to manufacturer to wholesaler, that you have confirmation that the product is registered. And so with that said, my point is, or my plan, I should say, is to share my screen, and we'll go through product registration from start to finish. I'm a somewhat visual learner, and I also need to see the whole picture so I can understand the parts. And for those who also learn that way, I'd like to show you how your product registration submission should look, and then what I am seeing also on the back end, so you have that whole string. So I'm going to register a flower and an edible, and do front to back of each. And as everyone has said, keep your questions coming. So give me a moment as I set up. And should be good. Yay. All right. So as many of you know this website very well, we will start by logging into your license application portal, which will look like this. You'll have my applications, my licenses, my employee ID cards, and we're starting here at product registration. I do want to point out, for those establishments that had a lawyer or a third party enter the application, you may not be able to enter it under your submission. And that is one glitch that we are very well aware of in our system, and we're expecting a resolution to that issue within 1 to 2 weeks, I think is the timeline at this point. So that way we can open access for the direct licensees to enter as many product registrations as they need to without having to go through that third party if that's how they wish to proceed. So since this is a test, I'm going to go under unlicensed establishments, but many of you will be going under licensed establishments. We're really preparing for the hemp market to come under the CCB, and then also planning for federalization. We're having this unlicensed establishment already built in, so we can always have eyes on those. But with that said, and also please don't make fun of my fake names. I hope it makes you laugh. So, Lauren is Cannabis. This is my business establishment. So if you didn't have one already created, you would click New Business Establishment Form, and it's simply your name. If you're a hemp processor, it would be your hemp registrant number. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but again, let me know. So I already put Lauren is Cannabis in here as a test. We hit save and next, and then you enter your business location and save and next. So sometimes we get minor glitches in our system, and you'll get something like that, like info doesn't meet or no records found. Don't let that stop you, right? So we just want to click a new location. It could be that your submission is not talking to this product registration. So then I enter my address and click submit. So even though I had that little hiccup, I'm able to jump in here, right? And so our product name will be Hig Trees. And then the product type is flower. And as part of our guidance in bulk flower, I just want to remind people that pre-roll and flowers can be one product registration. And you simply have to upload both types of labeling and or both types of packaging. And then you'll take your COA for potency, which can look different ways depending on which lab you're using to enter your potency results. Some people prefer to enter it in milligrams or percentages. It makes more sense to do it other ways depending on product. I'm going to go with percentages at this point. And so really we're looking at these shorthand abbreviations that match our potency results that are provided by our licensed laboratories. And we want to put the data in as it reflects on your potency test results. So bear with me. If you see the red star, that means it is required. And I'm in percentage here. I'm using an actual example, and you'll be able to see what I'm uploading on the next part of the product registration. So you're able to see the entire bit. All right. All right, so make sure it matches, but I'm not gonna go through every one. So I don't bore you. So then we get down to packaging. As a reminder, I'm doing flower and pre-roll, and so this packaging is not required to be child resistant. So I would say no, but is the packaging child deterrent? Yes, this is required. I think some people are snagged up on these questions because if it is child resistant, then it's automatically child deterrent. But that is why it's so important to upload the additional documents, which you'll see later on. Another important factor is to describe or indicate if this is under an approved plastic waiver. And that list is also on our guidance page of different plastic packaging waivers and when they were approved and when the approval expires. And then there's some general labeling questions. Is this product white labeled? This is an interesting question because we know that there are retailers labeling flour. There are some manufacturers that are using their label or their brand for flour. I think this is a way for us to start building that web and that connection of all of our licensed establishments. This question, I would say, at this point in our market is an NA because we're not moving products in and out of state. But we built it into our system so we don't have to do a major overhaul if federalization comes or if this is more related to hemp products. So then we're looking for the required warnings. Does it have it? Yes. Again, you're going to provide the picture, but we're looking for the 2 graphics and the narrative language and any others required if it's an edible and have ingredients list, etc. And does it have the THC content? And this is flour, so I do not have an ingredients list. We hit save and next. All right, the documents upload is so important. What I'm going to do is show you the documents I am going to use to upload. So flour requires 3 tests: pathogens, potency, and pesticides. We like to call it the 3 Ps. These are actual examples, but I've removed all the identifying information just so you're all able to view it. So right here, as you are all aware of, it'll have your business name, the license number, any identifying information. What I appreciate here is sometimes it'll say flour wet or flour dry, and the date the specimen was received and when the report was received. So here's the pathogens test we're looking for with the result of none detected. CPIL puts pass or fail. BIA will say that it is detected if it's positive for pathogens. So I would upload this specifically to test results. Let me do it a little differently. So. What I've heard, so here you can see that it was uploaded successfully. What I've heard from some people is that there's not a spot for me to upload this test result or this picture. Essentially, you're able to upload anything in any of these spots in an unlimited amount of content. So I could upload 10 files right here to the link of text and packaging. So don't feel like you're limited to these 4 boxes. Upload as much as you think is appropriate to make sure that your submission is complete, because that will expedite your approval or registration. All right, and then I am looking at the flour potency. This got a little bit wobbly as I tried to, more or less redact it. Maybe it just doesn't like me. So this is an example of potency or cannabinoid summary from BIA. We would have your company name here, your license, any ID, the specimen ID, which is important, the different types of the matrix they use for flour, sample ID here. We're now seeing the specific strain, and then there were lot and harvest lot and process lots listed there. But here is where we're looking at the 30% THC cap on flower. So we know the distinction that we're not looking at this total cannabinoids, but the total THC. So I don't want people to get too nervous if this goes over 30% a little bit, but your THC is still within range. So be able to make that distinction. We're also looking at the percent of moisture content. And that is either moisture content, which is what BIA does, or the water activity and moisture content, which Steep Hill documents. And that is under 13% for percent moisture. We're definitely recognizing in your pesticides test, your pathogens test, if the water, the moisture content is listed there, we're basing it off of the potency test result where the percent moisture is, because usually that is specific to the strain and specific to that current sample. And so let me add that up here to, not that, as a COA. And then our pesticides. Again, it looks wobbly because I modified it. But here's the pesticide test COA from BIA. What I think is also important to note is here we have a positive test result, but whenever we see that, we are reviewing it against our testing limits, which is in guidance as well and in rule, to make sure that it is within limits. So this amount, even though it is positive, is within our limits allowed. So that is also something to consider when you're uploading files. And I'll just drag this on over and it won't do that. Okay. Now we're looking at our label. Here are two graphics, our narrative, keep out of reach of children. The person lists the company, the test results address, and I think what's important too with our label review, we're making sure that there's no false or misleading statements, and that it meets all the requirements that are in our labeling guidance. I know that there's been some discussion about, you know, what is appealing to children, and that is really why it's important that we have all documentation and pictures of your label to upload. And so picture of label can go right there. What's important too, if you're registering this as flower and pre-roll, as I said, you would want to have two links or two files for the packaging used. Similarly for the picture of the label. And so someone who registered the same cultivar but of a pre-roll and just flower has two links to packaging or two pictures of packaging, at least two labels, depending on if they're doing one label, or excuse me, one package within a package. I hope that is clear. So here you're able to review everything. One thing I forgot, our packaging. So I recognize too that with our interim solution, there was the ability to put a link to your packaging where you're buying it from, and that was super helpful. And I know that doesn't exist here, but we are building it in as in the next release. So I want you all to know that that is on our radar. Some people are taking just screenshots with their phone. Others are creating a PDF of where they're ordering from. As long as we're able to see that plastic is not used or that it's part of our plastics waiver, that is the documentation to provide. And so I upload that. And so then I do a quick review. I have flower label, flower packaging, and the 3 Ps of pesticides, pathogens, and potency. And then I go to pay and submit. For this purpose, I'm going to hit something that I don't need to put my credit card information in, so I think y'all know why. But if you were to click online, you'd hit pay now, and then you could pay via your credit card, and we get email confirmation. So that's how we're reconciling it, and I'll show you in the back end system. So for now, I'll just do pay now via check. It tells you how to send it to us. And here it is submitted successfully. So I'm going to write down this number, P696. So I don't share any confidential information. I'm going to go offline for a moment. Bryn, do you have any
No, I think this is great.
elevator music?
Nobody wants to hear me saying that. I don't think so.
Okay. Let me log back into Salesforce. All right. Are you all so excited? You get to see our licensing portal from our side. So here is Salesforce. Here's what it looks like when it comes in. And there's a whole feed of the queue. But what we're really looking at is your product registration ID number, the product name, the type, it's in submitted status. I know who the business establishment is and when it was created. Also submitted. So here's how it looks as I'm reviewing it. I also know this is an original type. Hopefully we will be able to breathe before we get to product registration renewals, but I'm sure that'll be around the corner. If I went through a licensed establishment tile, you would have your submission or license number here. There's my business establishment. Account engagement and business location will become more important for us as our inventory tracking and product registration integrate together. And here we know it's flower and pre-roll, the product name, my potency that I entered, all the information is here. As I scroll down as well, if you were to request a withdrawal, we would have that information here. Just like with your licensing applications, if you had to amend it, we would see that information here. Renewal is not here yet. But down here, what's important, I know some questions had come up about this, about who modified the record. As you can see, the CCB hasn't touched this record yet, and so it's just myself as an applicant. Before we get to the fun part, right? Here are all the files I've uploaded. So I uploaded 5, I see 5. We are able to see a product registration history, which is so valuable. So we can see the original value. It was a draft, and then I submitted it. So we can see the whole string of the completed registration. And then here is where we are documenting the charges. So if most likely this would be a success if you paid via credit card. I go over to documents and I can preview. So as you, maybe it loads, as you see, everything that you upload, I'm able to see. So I won't go through all, but we see they're all here. We can download them, but really we're previewing them. Sometimes we'll make notes. We're able to email you. And what I do, since it meant the test results, the labeling criteria, the packaging criteria, I click registered and save. And there it is registered. So the next important point is I should get an email that my application was submitted successfully. Well, that was submitted successfully. So I got that. And then here it is approved. So here is product registration application approved. That is what you are all taking to the next stop with your cannabis, right? If you're selling directly to retailer, this will help them ensure that your product is registered. If you're selling your flower to a manufacturer, whatever step you're at. So as you can see here, you'll get notification if you submitted successfully and when it is approved. You'll also get notification if it's incomplete and we're requesting more information. Is everybody breathing? I think I am. Are you, Bren?
I am. I'm taking it easy over here.
Great. All right, so next I'd like to, I see your question. I'll try not to be distracted.
We will get to the questions at the end.
Right, so hopefully I'll go quickly. Now I just want to show an edible right now. So this is a training. We don't want to, I want you all to see how, even though right now this submission is for a cultivator, I'm still going to demonstrate what it looks like for a manufacturer. So the product name, you all are way more creative than I am. I'm going to just call it chocolate. And that is an edible. I think what's helpful is to really keep an eye on the product type so that we're able, when we have our product registration list, that it's easy to navigate. Usually we have milligrams for edibles, but again, that's open to how you want to present your information. The one I am reviewing has this one, 1.22 grams. And we manually enter it. All right. So what's important here, is the packaging child resistant? Yes, it is required to be child resistant for all edibles and cannabis products. Remember, flower and pre-roll are not that. So it's inherently child deterrent. I will indicate that it is under an approved plastic waiver. It is not white labeled. It's not out of state. It has the required warnings, the THC content, and here with manufactured products, it is really important to be mindful of the ingredients list. So I click Save and Next, and here we are again. I'm going to minimize this. I can do the drag over again. So here is an example of an edible label. And what I appreciated about this point was that it also gave me information about the packaging used. So if you have a picture of your package with your label on it, that is sufficient as well. That's how some people have shown like the entire picture. It's just important to make sure we see all the pieces that are required. So this is telling me it's chocolate. We have the 5 milligrams of THC per serving, 5 milligrams total. So it includes multiple servings. We have the 2 graphics. We have the narrative warning. We have the effects of cannabis may be delayed. Keep out of reach of children. We have the ingredients list. We have some instructions and nutritional facts. So what I also know is that this is showing me the cardboard fold to the child resistant packaging. but I will still be looking for that. So I am going to upload that for a label. Some people have provided actual narratives of what their packaging is like, and then also created a PDF form so we can access the link this way in lieu of having the placeholder for the link, which I know is really helpful. So I'll upload that. And here are edible test results. So it's a chocolate bar. You would have your information here, the license number, the sample ID. Here's where my 1.22 is. What's also interesting to note here, I don't have enough information to review because I don't know what the sample weight was. So so you all know too, we're talking with the testing labs, so I can use the reference sample here, call them up and say, what is the weight that you used for these percentages, so we can do the conversion to make sure that it is in line. And this person also submitted the distillate. So the test results, the potency of what they used to create the chocolate bar. That is always welcomed and helpful. But I don't want it lost as well that we need the potency results for how the product meets the consumer. And scroll down. And so then we have the heavy metal summary for those that are using extraction. We do have some positive test results, but it's within parameters set in rule and our pathogens. So, and then also pesticides. And then terpenes. Important to note, we do not need to see terpenes right now, but some people are providing more test results as they wish. So then I add it here to test results. So really, I've only uploaded 3 documents, but they serve multiple purposes. And if you have one document that has 4 test results on it, it's okay to combine them like that. So I hit pay and submit. And it's, oh, great. No one's submitting right now. 697. Let's go see. So then I received the email that it was submitted successfully. Let me unplug while I get Salesforce up. There. So here's my product registration ID. There's my name. Please be more creative, but not too creative. Some of you are too creative, I might say. Then you have your edible here. It's in submitted status. We know who it's created by. So I see this in my queue. And just as I did before, I see Lauren is Cannabis. I usually start to make sure we're in the correct status and that payment was made, that all the information is accurate. And we've reviewed our documents. We know they're compliant. So in the interest of time, I'm whizzing through registered. We save it and let's make sure the email comes in. And there's that email you're taking to meet the consumers with your products. It is approved. And another important point is once we click registered, then we will start the clock on the expiration date, days remaining until renewal.
So this was a lot, and I'm
Yep.
hoping I can interject just for a
I am
minute.
done, yeah.
To emphasize the importance of that last screen that Lauren shared with the email that you get about your product registration. We've had multiple questions from retailers asking how do they know if a product is registered, and they should be requiring proof of registration from whoever that they're buying the product from if they're not registering the product themselves. At the next board meeting, we will be talking about a product registration catalog. We will start reporting out product registrations at the end of the month. That will be reported essentially as like a Excel sheet catalog initially, until we build the capacity for a public facing product registration catalog, which is down the road a little ways. But that is an important tool for retailers to ensure that they, before they stock a product on the shelves, they can confirm that it's been registered. And that's the document they should request. It's that email that indicates registration.
And to the first, one of the points I made earlier too, if you are not the holder of the application, and you're able to submit product registration, somehow that email notification may be going to your attorney or a third party person who completed the application. So I think that is an important point to note out, to identify as well. Right. The other piece that I wanted to note is that the interim system is currently being migrated into our licensing portal. So for those of you who submitted prior and have the approval, you may be getting these automatic emails as we register your products in the new portal. So I just want to make sure you might get duplicated emails in that way as well.
Okay, so we're about at 5:45, and I think we should open it up to questions now. We've gotten a number of questions in the chat that I think we can go through quickly before we turn to the raised hands. I'm not going to be able to answer all these, but hopefully between you and I, Lauren,
Okay.
and Mike, we also have Mike on the line. We should be able to answer them. So the first one is, how many products have been submitted but not yet approved? Lauren, do you have
I
that
do
number?
that. Let me just create that.
Okay, while you do that, I will try and answer the next one. The next question is, do you need to re-register a product that you're going to use again? For example, if I regrow the same strain, do I need to re-register or just update the three Ps, tests? So I think that that's a little bit different based on what kind of grower you are. So for indoor growers that are harvesting multiple times during the year and you have a product registration that you've done for a single strain, you would need to upload your test results for each harvest that you do. So that would be an update to your existing product registration as opposed to a new one. For an outdoor grower, the product registration lasts for a year. It's an annual registration. So when you register your harvest one year, you'll upload your test results. And then when you grow the product again next year, you will re-register that strain. So I hope that helps answer that question.
And as you update existing product registrations, on your list under my product registrations, scrolling all the way to the right, you can amend your submission. So that'll allow you to add those additional COAs. So even as I spoke earlier, we've at 689 submissions, 292 are in submitted status. We have 162 as registered, 89 are in draft form, 65 are incomplete, 40 are resubmitted, 26 are under review. That's usually when we're communicating with the lab or we have a question, more of a process question we're looking at. And then 17 are in other. That could include denials.
So the next question is, what is the general turnaround time for approval, denial, or request for more information?
At this point, we're processing the registration in the order that they are received, the submissions, and it's taking approximately 12 business days. So that's about 2.5 weeks. That's what we're down to at this point.
Okay. If a wholesale grower registers their strain, does a retailer have to? Not packaged, but wholesale from the grower. If the grower registers it, does the retailer have to? Every product only needs to be registered once. So the wholesaler can register it. Any cannabis establishment licensee can register a product. So it does not need to be also registered by a retailer if it's already been registered by a wholesaler or a cultivator. And that should also answer the next question. If a dispensary is purchasing bulk flower and labeling the product, is the dispensary or the cultivator responsible for product registration? We have guidance on bulk flower registration, and I would just say again, that is a business decision about who does that registration. If it's the cultivator or the dispensary, it just doesn't have to be both, one or the other. So Nellie, I think all the questions I see in the chat. Would you like to take us through our hands?
I can indeed.
Thank
So
you.
first I see Jane Lanza.
Hi, thank you all for your time. I'll try to make this quick. As a cultivator and manufacturer, dating back to when the market first opened, we started registering products, I think as early as late September, and I just received my first approval. And so the 12-day thing and the email that I need to be on shelves, I'm wondering about like the last 30 products. I've sent numerous emails throughout the past to the products email and others about like, can we see what's listed? Can we do updates? Does this work for packaging? And just didn't really get a lot of replies. So I'm just wondering about that, with all due respect to your staffing situation and process.
So is that a comment? I'm taking that as a comment, unless there was a question in there that I did not hear.
Yeah, I'm not, the question is regarding the email you mentioned as a proof of registration to retailers that they will require for a transaction. And then just curious about like where we can find the dozens of products we've registered before the portal. I'm just got the first approval months and months later, many of them outstanding still. So it's a question, with all due respect.
Jane, let me look in, because I've reviewed many family tree ones, products. So if I feel like we have communicated, if you're not getting the final, okay, then
I just got my very first approval a few days ago. So thank you. I appreciate finding out how to access that email I need for this.
I'm looking at your file right now, and I see a ton, just like you're saying. So let's follow up outside of here.
Yes,
okay?
thank you. And thank you. The question is just wondering if we'll ever see the backlog in the portal. And I think you did address that. At some point we'll be able to, and then we can pass that on to the retailer. And in the meanwhile, I'll contact you privately. Thanks.
Yeah.
Next up is Donnie. Or Donnie, I'm not sure.
Hi there, Donnie. Thanks for having this session and for all the work you guys are doing. I guess I'm sort of in a similar situation as Jane, where we we applied back in early November, and I've reached out numerous times and haven't heard anything back. So I guess I have two questions. That's part of it. So like, how do we get in touch with somebody? And then the second question is, can you guys go over the kind of the notes that are listed in the testing section of 2.9.1, where results for harvest lot is sufficient to show compliance?
Don, what company are you with, or which business? I can
Tilly
know.
Processing, we're a tier 3 manufacturer.
What was that? I'm sorry, it cut out.
Tilia Processing.
Oh, yeah, okay. Do we do 2.91? I don't have it memorized, so.
Sure, we can, you want us to go over the rule requirement for testing, Donnie? Was that the question?
There's just like all these notes for products and infused products, like note 2, trim flower or concentrate testing is sufficient to show compliance. So I just want to be super clear on what we're required to upload. Like, can we upload the pesticide result for the flower, and that's sufficient for the product that we're making? Because that's how it reads in 2.9.1, but I just want to make sure that I'm understanding that correctly.
Yes, I haven't seen a pesticide test on a final product for that. You're accurate with that pesticide interpretation, but I don't have them memorized, so.
And it may be useful to look at our proposed rule amendment for Rule 2, because we did put like a flow chart in there for testing requirements. I don't know if you have looked at that or not.
I've looked at the one you have on your guidance page, which doesn't show those at all. So that's where I just got confused, because
Okay.
On the chart, I see.
because
Okay.
there are some contingencies that would, if you have the flower result, which a lot of growers are providing, then the manufacturer have to test for all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to answer your question without knowing, the whole chain of events or the product. So
I might be able to jump in here. This
Oh,
is
Mike.
Mike. Donnie, is the product you're hoping to register, if that was created using solvent extraction? I guess that's a question to you.
Yep, we're supercritical CO2.
Okay, yeah. So if you're using solvent extraction, you would need to register that product. You would need to provide your pesticide analysis on that. The process lot, so the CO2 extract used in the manufacture, as well as residual solvent analysis, and a potency result for the final product.
Right. So this is where I would suggest looking at the rule amendment, because we have a flow chart that shows, based on your extraction process, what test results need to be uploaded on that final product. So for solvent extraction, it's the cannabinoid testing, the residual solvents, the pesticides, and the heavy metals. And I think that is clearer in our new rule than it is elsewhere in our guidance.
Yeah, I would say that's very unclear in this other set of guidance that was released. So,
okay.
Thank you.
I am going to make a relevant announcement right now for everybody on the call. That is, we're going to be making an announcement at the next board meeting about our plan for testing moving forward. Currently, our requirement for pesticide testing on flower is that it's required per representative commingled sample of a harvest lot. And that requirement is going to be changing prior to the next outdoor harvest. So not immediately, but before the next outdoor harvest, we are going to require that each strain grown by a cultivator for flower is going to need to undergo pesticide testing. And we will be issuing a statement about this in the next week, and we will make an announcement at the next board meeting to help cultivators make decisions for their next growing season. And just to be clear, this is not an immediate requirement for testing, but a requirement before the next outdoor harvest. And we will be issuing a statement about this later on. So I wanted to make that announcement for all of you who showed up tonight. We can move on to the next question now.
Jesse.
Hey there. My first question is, I just wanted to double check to make sure you're certain on your turnaround day being 12, because that also has not been my experience. So I just want to throw it out there so you can maybe reevaluate that. That's
So
my
I think to be
first question.
clear about the turn, I think we may, and maybe this wasn't clear at the outset, but the turnaround time that we are, that Lauren referenced is the turnaround time from our Salesforce-based system. So we built that interim system because we had to make sure that products were undergoing this review process before our Salesforce-based system was built. And so the applicants to the interim system are experiencing longer turnaround times.
Okay, so my second question then is, are you approving submissions from the new system? Has that happened? Have people been approved from the new system
Yes.
before people in the old system have been approved?
My understanding is that we are doing simultaneous review and approval. People who applied through the interim system and people who've applied through the new system, we're reviewing both and approving both.
Okay. So in the future, when we're switching platforms, it would be extremely helpful to let us know that it might be in our best interest to reapply in the new system. I'm also another person that is applied back in December and have heard one email trying to clarify things when it was within the thread of that email, and have heard nothing since the middle of January. And this could sink us as small cultivators. So I'm Old Growth Vermont. If you would please write that down, Lauren. I haven't heard anything. My third question is, do you guys have the capacity to respond to emails? Do you have the time and capacity? And if you do, what is the turnaround?
Jesse, that feels like more of a comment. If you were here during the first part of the meeting, I discussed our limited staffing and the way that we have been doing our best efforts to shuffle staffing to address the product registration backlog, which is a very similar backlog to what we faced with the licensing application backlog over the summer. We are doing our very best to get back to everybody. We have a number of other workflows that we are also responsible for. Our mandates are not just for product registration. We have a number of other things. So yes, we have capacity to respond to emails, and we do understand that people have been frustrated with the pace of product registration. We are doing our best to shuffle staff to address the backlog. But we hear your frustration.
Yes, and that was a true question, because it is better for all of us to know up front if you guys don't have the capacity. That's better for us to know up front. So my last question is there anything that we can do for you guys to petition for more staffing?
You can reach out to your legislator if you feel that the board is deserving of more staffing. We have requested one additional staff member in our legislative report on the hemp issue. So we have requested additional staffing from the legislature.
All right, the rest I'll put into comment.
All right, just doing a time check quickly before I move on to anybody else. It's currently 6:01. Bryn, how would you like to proceed?
Well, I think we'll proceed as we always do, which is to request that anybody who had a question that wasn't answered, please submit it through our through our website. Nellie will remind me of the email address, and we will get back to people that way. And thank you everybody so much for coming.
The product registration email is ccb.products@vermont.gov, and the general CCB email address is ccb.info@vermont.gov.
Guys, may I make a quick
right.
comment about staffing?
Sure.
You know, this is very important. I really appreciate that, Bryn. You know, Jeffrey from Vermont Growers Association. I just want to very briefly just make a point. Everybody, the agency is trying as best they can. There are initiatives in the State House this year to request above and beyond the appropriations that the agency has asked for, and to direct the agency to build up staff specific to product registration. If you're interested in backing these efforts, please reach out to us. We think that this is industry-wide and relevant to everybody. Thank you, guys. I just want to make that quick statement.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.